Welcome to the Wild Remedies podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Ancora, and I'm here to bring you captivating stories from some of the most fascinating people I've connected with on my own journey of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wild Remedies podcast. Today, we're chatting with Erin Holt, the functional, I love how she spells it, the functional nutritionist. And man, she's so cool. Probably one of the most educated people in this realm that I've spoken to thus far. She has been working with people anywhere from wellness influencers all the way down to regular folks like you and I for years now. And she has a wealth of knowledge. Erin's an integrative and functional nutritionist, and she has quite the feisty attitude. I really love chatting with her. She's really funny. And she has over a decade of clinical experience. She focuses on blending evidence-based practices, functional lab testing, energy medicine, boundary setting, and humor for a unique and customized approach to women's health. And she dives deep with women to get to the root cause of their health issues and finally get answers to their mystery symptoms. Yeah, this was really cool. Like a lot of what Erin talks about is just really listening to people, especially women. A lot of times we go in with chronic health conditions or just stuff that we've been struggling with for a really long time and just get brushed aside from our GPs or whoever the first line of medical intervention is, usually a GP. And it can create a whole trauma response in itself or reinforce some trauma for people who have not felt seen or recognized for what they've been going through. So this is a really important aspect that I'm so glad that she brings up, and it's something that really needs to be addressed with health moving forward. And in addition to running all of like the online nutrition stuff and all of the amazing things that she's been doing, she is the founder of Functional Nutrition Academy. And this is a 14-month practitioner training and mentorship, which helps nutrition pros level up with functional medicine methodologies, which is really, really cool. Erin also has a podcast as well, the Functional Nutrition Podcast. So if you love what you've heard today, make sure to connect with her there as well. And we will have links in the show notes. All right, so let's get into this episode. I think you're really going to love it. And let's meet Erin. Hey y'all, I just wanted to drop in and share some love for one of the magic elixir blends we make here at Wild Remedies, our Glow Potion. It's warming up outside right now, and this is the perfect potion to break out and start supporting your skin. This product actually contains 90% of your daily vitamin C in just one serving, and it contains this really cool ingredient called ceramicides. It's a skin-plumping nutraceutical that brings moisture to your skin. I suggest drinking this potion every 2 to 3 days, so one of these boxes lasts around a month. Here's a couple of reviews from real customers. Kazi A says, the flavor is light and sweet. I really like that there were strawberry seeds in it and it pairs well with oat milk. Yes. Okay. So one really amazing thing about this product is it's made with real dehydrated strawberries. And so you will get little seeds in it. I just love that part. Thanks so much for your feedback, Kazi. Another customer, Kyla E, says, this has a beautiful, smooth flavor. After just a few uses, I noticed more hydration in my skin and I highly recommend this product. Now, this Glow Potion is really awesome blended with milk of choice to make a latte, but we actually have some really amazing recipes on our blog too. I personally make a simple cordial with the blend by mixing the powder with a little bit of maple syrup, and then I top it up with soda water. And ta-da! You have this amazing skin plumping, healthy soda. It's so refreshing for the warmer months. So check out our site at wildremedieshop.com. We have new lower prices, free shipping on bundles, and lots of amazing herbal recipes. Enjoy, you guys. Welcome to the Wild Remedies podcast, Erin. Super excited to talk to you today. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. Where are you right now?
I'm in New Hampshire, so
Okay.
I would think it's like an hour and a half from Boston.
Nice.
Context to where I am on the map.
Wonderful. And are you getting all of the wonderful spring equinox vibes over there right now?
Yeah, it's definitely like spring has sprung for sure. There's still a lot of snow on the ground, but it's starting to melt. So The sun is
Really?
out, and for that
Yeah.
we are grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Here as well. I'm just so excited we just entered Aries season and all of that fresh energy coming in. And I'm so excited about it.
My sun sign is a Pisces, and like if you know
Mhm.
me, you would be super shocked. Like everyone kind of thinks I'm an Aries because I'm like all fire all the time. But I'm right on the cusp there. My birthday's St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. I just had a birthday.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Happy
and
birthday.
I'm Thank you. But I love me some Aries energy. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody does. It's just,
So
yeah,
good.
bringing new life to everybody right now.
Unless you fight with an Aries, I think that's the only time that you're like, oh, maybe I don't love Aries so much.
Totally. The low octaves can be a little bit frightening for sure. Sweet. Well, I'm super psyched to talk to you about functional nutrition today. This is kind of a new one for me. We've had nutritionists on the podcast before, but I've never heard the term functional nutrition. So, first of all, why don't we just kind of dive into that, like what functional nutrition is and how you came into this line of expertise?
Yeah, this is funny because typically when I'm on shows, they're like functional nutrition shows. So I'm like, oh, this is great. We're starting with like a take it from the top, starting with a
Yeah.
fresh crowd. I think it probably does make sense to start a little bit with my backstory because that
Mhm.
kind of explains what this approach is and how it's unique. I went to school for dietetics originally because I was struggling with years long disordered eating from my teens into
Mhm.
my early 20s. And so I decided to go to school so I could fix myself. Essentially, I was very much so living with this belief that my body is a problem to be solved. It is a problem that needs to be fixed, like so many women carry around with that belief. I had bought into that and I was like, if I can just go to school to learn about nutrition to get myself skinnier, then I won't have to do these disordered eating behaviors. And there we go. I'm healed. I'm cured. So I was still very much so at that point looking at food and nutrition through the lens of will it make me skinny? Will this lead to thinness and leanness, which is like the holy grail, right? The ideal body. And through learning about nutrition and the science and nutritional biochemistry and all of that, it didn't really fix me. It didn't really make me any better. So after graduation, I was still struggling and decided to turn toward more of a alternative approach, which involved me taking the focus off of food and putting the focus onto every other aspect and area of my life, like relationships and career and enjoyment. I found yoga. I found meditation. I started building these practices into my life and I stopped hyperfixating on food. And through that, I was able to heal and recover through very like non-traditional methods. And that's how I started building my nutrition practice. My focus at first was on emotional eating, and I took a very non-diet approach to food. And that was like really great. I was kind of living the dream. I had this nutrition practice. I was teaching yoga. I met my husband. We got married. I had a baby. Like life was good. And then after I gave birth, at this point, it's almost 9 years ago, I got extremely sick and I kept going to my doctors being like, something's really wrong here. And they're like, nah, this is just kind of like normal. All of your lab work is normal. This is normal for a new mom. I think in our culture, we're really okay with the ideas of mom being like completely wrung out, used up, like, yeah, you're exhausted. Yeah, that tracks if you're a mom. So I was kind of just like tossed out of my doctor's office time and time again. That went on for a year. It kind of refer to it as the medical gaslighting of the American woman, where it's like your lived experience isn't real. It's all happening in your head. You're kind of crazy. Here's some Valium. Get to step in. That's all I've got for you. That's all she wrote. And
Literally.
after about a year, I was like, I can't, like, this is insane. And I had to advocate for myself. And through that self advocacy, we got a lot of lab work done. And I ended up being diagnosed with a very serious autoimmune illness. So I wasn't crazy. It wasn't all in my head. It was actually happening. Now, the way that the conventional model looks at autoimmunity, it's kind of a big question mark. We don't have a whole lot of answers for you. Like, we don't know why it happens, and we don't really know what to do for you other than to put you on medication that can shut down your entire immune system, which isn't great. It's great if you need it, not awesome if you don't. It shouldn't be the first place that we start. So that kind of prompted me to do my own research and my own continuing education. And it was that way, like that's how I found functional medicine and functional nutrition. And what the premise of functional medicine is essentially looking for the root cause. Conventional medicine is really good at saying you have this, but it's not so great at asking the questions, but why? And that's where functional medicine comes into play. It's like, hey, the body doesn't break down for no reason. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's not random. So we want to uncover what happened. What was the process that broke it down? And then can we address it from the root? A great analogy for folks is if you step on a tack, when you're walking around, you're in bare feet, you step on a tack, ouch, that's going to hurt. If you have a tack in your foot, it's going to hurt. And there are certain things that you can do to alleviate that pain. You can take Advil, you can maybe like rub some essential oils on it, you can put some numbing cream on it. There's a lot of things you can do to manage the symptom, which is pain. But the pain, the problem is never just going to go away unless you remove the tack. And so that's really what a functional root cause approach is looking for the tack to remove
it. I love that. Yeah. And there's so much there that I really resonate with, especially with your story in the beginning about equating health and wellness with being skinny.
Yeah.
That was always a thing for me as well. Like my body shape isn't even naturally, very thin, but in my mind it was like, okay, if I'm going to be healthy, if like that is just what I thought that equated, which created eating disorder for me as well. And so I completely understand that. It's interesting though how you moved into nutrition. So there was like this fixation on the eating and stuff. Like, how did you heal that relationship and then be able to come into a place of, working in the nutrition field from like a healed place?
Well, I do feel that food can be medicine and
Yeah.
food has the power to heal. The reality of the situation is that everything in our body requires nutrients, everything in our body. And
Yeah.
so we need to obtain those nutrients through food. And
Yeah.
so for me, in healing from my eating disorder, it wasn't about bypassing nutrition or bypassing food altogether. It was just not allowing that to be the primary focus. It was recognizing that food is a really big piece, but it's not the only piece. And so I had to address other aspects of my life. And I had to understand that my relationship to food had very little to do with food and had everything to do with my relationship to myself, how I viewed myself in the world. Obviously, this goes back to like family of origin and how I grew up and, like all sorts of things. Very complex, very layered. But food was was only one of the pieces. But I never lost sight of the fact that food can be nourishment and food can be healing, and that's and I always had a deep reverence and respect for that. And so that's kind of what brought me back full circle to be teaching, educating about food. But I do really, really want to underscore that food is one piece of somebody's overall health pie.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks now hyperfixate on the diet, like the trends, all of the things in order to feel in control about changing something that maybe they don't like about themselves on an exterior level. But really, a lot of the healing and the change happens within. And that can be really difficult to face for a lot of folks because it's work, right? It's not a quick fix situation.
Well, I mean, we're conditioned and primed to look for the quick fix. And it's so, I used to travel around and teach in person lectures. And one of the questions that I would always ask is about the quick fix. Like, do you believe that the quick fix exists? And everyone's like, no, we know consciously, we know. And we can sit here and tell you that we do not believe the quick fix exists. And yet, the vast majority of people are on the perpetual quest for the next quick fix. So it's a huge disconnect between like consciously what we know to be true, and then like the subconscious drivers of like, but what if it does exist? And if it does exist, I need to find it. We're really primed to kind of like be on the perpetual lookout for that. We're very excited at any opportunity to do that. And so it's a little bit of an uphill battle that people face, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough. I mean, even when you do find a practitioner that you're working with and that you really resonate with the healing modalities, and it's still difficult. Like, I know with the process that I'm currently going through right now, I'm going a homeopathic route and doing some really deep testing that might be a little bit different, but it's resonating with me right now. But there's this whole, process of shedding these layers. So my body's changing a lot in the sense that I've removed certain things in my life, like hormonal medication and things that I was on for all kinds of chronic conditions. But my body's changing, right? Like gained a bunch of weight, and feeling not super well through this process because we're going really deep and focusing on like parasites and bacteria and all of the stuff that's been really deep in my body for a really long time. And so it's this whole process of being able to trust that process and let go of a little bit of control and just let my body heal, even though it can be really uncomfortable. And it's not a quick fucking process. Like, it's months that it's been already. And I know it's going to be several months more. And I think that's something that people just need to understand when you're going the natural healing route and you really actually want to get to the root and actually heal. It's not overnight. It's not overnight.
No, and you really, somebody should be pre-framing that for you, like whoever you're
Yeah,
working with should
totally.
be willing to say like, hey, this is going to be a process. And that is so, so important. So you don't feel like you're failing, right? Like you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to win. And the biggest thing we can come back to is this idea that our body does know how to heal when it's given the correct inputs, right? Food can be one of them. We have to figure out, part of healing is figuring out where we might be interrupting that process. And healing is absolutely unquestionably a process. So I appreciate you
Mm.
bringing that to the forefront.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about functional nutrition a little bit more. Like, what makes it different than just regular nutrition practice?
So if we're looking at conventional nutrition, it's kind of a little bit more template driven of like, this is the way to do it. Whereas functional nutrition takes more into account individuality, and what's good for one person may not be appropriate for another person. And even to take that a bit further, what's good for one person in one season of their life might not be appropriate for another season of their life.
Yeah.
To make things even more complex. The type of practice that I do at this point is more functional medicine based. So we are looking for those root causes. If somebody comes and let's say they have heartburn, ongoing GI dysfunction, heartburn, or let's use heartburn as an example. So they're coming to me and I want to know why. I'm not saying, oh, how do we get rid of the heartburn? What do I give this person to get rid of the heartburn? I'm saying, why is the heartburn happening in the first place? Is it lack of digestive capacity? Is it food hygiene, the way that they're eating, the environment in which that they're eating super fast, or they're drinking a ton of water with their meals? Is there something going on more from a bacterial standpoint, something like an H. pylori, which is a bacteria that can live in the stomach? Sometimes it's great, other times not so much. What is the actual cause or the root of this heartburn? And how do we address the root? rather than just try to mask the symptom. So a lot of the work that I do is looking at those roots, and it can be what's happening at the level of the gut, the microbiome, the bacteria and the fungi and the viruses that live in your colon, or your digestive tract, that tube that runs from your mouth to your bum. There's a lot of things that happen there, and that kind of needs to be addressed from top to tail. We could be looking at your liver capacity. So how well is your liver functioning? Listen, there's like this whole trend of being like, you don't need to do a detox. You've got a liver, you've got kidneys, you're fine. And it's like, cool. 150 years ago, that might have been great advice. That might have been all you needed, are those couple of organs. But now we really need to support the capacity of these organs because we're inundated with environmental toxicants. That's just the reality of our situation. So we're focusing on liver and hepatic biotransformation, which is just like liver clearance of different types of toxicants. We might be looking from hormones. We might be looking at thyroid physiology. There's a lot of different root factors that can come into play here. So it's really super duper duper individualized based on whoever I'm working with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you focus on lab testing for a lot of that stuff, right?
We do. Yeah. We
Yeah.
definitely run a labs-based practice. By the time folks are getting to us, they've been dealing with stuff for quite a few years. They've been
Yeah.
to a lot of other providers. So at that point, we want to have the data to kind of showcase exactly what's going on.
And through your work, I've noticed that you mentioned that there's certain foundations that people should address before looking at lab testing. What are
Yeah,
some of those things?
absolutely. Like I think so functional lab testing is typically out of pocket, right? So it can be
Yeah.
quite expensive for folks, especially if you're used to operating within the insurance model. It's usually not in the insurance model. And there is because it's funny to say that you've never heard of functional nutrition before, because like that's so my world, right?
Yeah.
Because it's gaining in more and more and more popularity, there are different ways to practice. In some functional nutritionists or functional medicine practitioners you work with, you'll walk in the door and have to throw down like $5, $6, $7, $8,000 before they'll even look at you, because they're running all of these labs, like tons of labs. That is not how I practice at all. I want to meet with you first. I want to have a conversation with you, and I want to see what you're doing, the foundations. Are you even doing those? We'll talk about that in a second. And then I want to see what your symptoms are. And then I want to see what your budget is. And from that information, through our dialogue, through our conversation, that's what I'm deciding. What data do we need to help us assess your root cause? And so there are different ways to practice a functional approach, just to keep that in mind. I want to let everybody know that, because it's not as simple as just finding a functional practitioner. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. In regards to like some of the foundations, like before I would even run expensive functional lab testing on somebody, I want to make sure that they're eating primarily a whole foods diet. That's going to look different for everybody, but we're not eating a ton of processed foods. We're not eating a ton of sugar, a lot of it pro-inflammatory foods. We want to just clean up the diet first. That is super important. That's a huge foundation. Sleep is another biggie. If you're not getting adequate sleep, if you're not prioritizing sleep hygiene, making sure that you're winding down appropriately at the end of the day, that you're supporting circadian rhythm, you don't need a $400 hormone test to tell you what's wrong with your hormones if you're not doing the basics in the foundation. So food, sleep, getting outside every day, getting exposed to sunlight, getting exposed to nature, whether that's a green space or a blue space, just getting outside every single day. Our bodies are designed to be outside. And so if we're not giving our bodies the inputs that they need, it's going to lead to imbalance and dysregulation. Moving your body every day, but not in such a way that it's pushing your body past its physical capacity. Because to kind of pull it back to the weight loss discussion, so much of what we do is with the end goal of weight loss, right? Of leanness, of thinness. And so typically I have women that will come to me over the past 12 years who are under eating. They're not eating enough calories. They're maybe doing a little bit of intermittent fasting because they read somewhere or listened to some podcast that that's the way to balance your hormones. And then they're doing high intensity interval training like 6 days a week. So that's a recipe for disaster. So when I say move your body, some is good, more is not necessarily better. We want to be moving our bodies every day, but not in a way that we're overshooting it, because that has a lot of downstream negative health effects. Those are like some of the biggies. Blood sugar balance is a huge one, because blood sugar imbalance, I should say, can impact your overall inflammation, your energy, your stress hormones, your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones. Blood sugar balance is one of the foundations. So just making sure we're not going huge, long stretches without skipping meals, making sure that we are eating within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up. Coffee doesn't count as a meal. I don't care how much stuff you add to it. Like, come fight me. Like, listen, I've been doing this work for 12 years. I've worked with thousands of women. I've seen so many hormone tests. Like, I say this with conviction. I come with receipts when I say this stuff. And then making sure we're eating balanced meals. So again, that balance is going to look very different for everybody, but making sure we're prioritizing protein. We are not completely skipping out on carbs, but we're not overeating refined carbohydrates. And then we're eating adequate fat, just to kind of give it like, like a real basic approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Honestly, the balanced approach to eating has been such a game changer for me. I was definitely one of those people who, was doing the keto, the
Yeah.
fasting, all of the training, because it was like, well, if I'm going to be healthy, then obviously I need to do all of these things and I need to lose the weight. And it was funny because recently I was just kind of like going through a bunch of old Instagram posts. I was looking for a recipe or something, and I had gone back to a time a couple of years ago where I had done this really intense cleanse, quote unquote cleanse. And I've done some of these things, these protocols in the past that are actually quite aggressive, right? It's like really low calories. I was drinking a ton of ghee. I was called a panchakarma cleanse. It was this Ayurvedic thing. But what I've learned is like my body does not react well to extremes at all. And so that includes the fasting and all of the training. And I look back and I see these posts that I've made where it's a photo of me and my body's a certain size. And I'm like, look how healthy I am. I'm feeling so great and I've lost some weight and yay me. And when I think back to those times, I'm like, yeah, cool. Okay, so I remember my depression was so bad at that time that I couldn't get out of bed for fucking days. I also remember that cleanse that I did absolutely destroyed my gut to the point where I was having these crazy histamine reactions. And all that energy that I was feeling was just straight up cortisol from all of the fasting, which later down the line totally destroyed my nervous system. So sometimes we think that we're doing all these really amazing things and pushing, and then you just kind of come undone, right? And that's where I am right now, where pushed way, way too hard in so many different levels of my life. Not only was it that, but had a relationship crash, building businesses, all of these things. And now I'm in this whole unlearning process of like, okay, how do we do less of all that stuff? Focus on walks, focus on eating carbs again. I don't do gluten, but I found this really amazing gluten-free sourdough that I have a little bit of bread every single day, something that I was absolutely terrified of before, but it actually really helps to ground me down, and eaten in balance with other foods can actually really help my blood sugar levels. And so it's a lot of unlearning, right? Because there's just so much crazy information out there.
There's so much information out there, and it's I work with a lot of women who are not misinformed, or they don't, it's not for lack of information, right? They have an abundance of information at their fingertips. And what they actually need is someone saying, this is the information that applies to you, to your unique physiology. All the rest you can forget about. It's not that fasting is wrong or bad or not a therapeutic strategy. It is. It's just saying, who is it a therapeutic strategy for? Is it you? If not, then don't do it and let that be okay. For the most part, for female physiology, for a menstruating female, our brains, all of our hormones, everyone wants to talk about hormones. I'm like, cool, you have to talk about the brain because that's where all of hormone production begins. And if your brain doesn't feel safe, it is not going to send the messages down to the rest of your glands and your organs to do the thing, to produce the hormones, right? It's going to shut it all down from the top. And so we have to continuously make sure that we're sending safety signals to our brain if we want to have robust health. So this looks like eating an
Yeah.
appropriate, fueling yourself. It
Yeah.
looks like for a lot of people eating an appropriate amount of carbs. It looks like not skipping meals. It looks like not overtraining. It's assessing the stress that's in your life. It's assessing the boundaries that you're setting or not setting. Are you a priority in your own life? Almost 9 years ago when I got the diagnosis, or 8 years ago when I got the diagnosis, I was told this could kill you. So that's a real wake-up call. And it's just so unfortunate. It sounds like you had like like a rock bottom and you're like, oh shit, it's all falling apart. Now I actually have to take care of myself. Right. And it's so frustrating to me that as women, we let it get to the point where it feels like everything is coming undone before we say oh shit, I really have to pull up for myself. I have to make myself a priority. I have to make my physical health a priority. And prioritizing leanness, prioritizing a six pack is not always the same thing as prioritizing health. Those two goals don't have to be mutually exclusive, but a lot of the times they actually are. And that's just the nature of the beast, and we have to always think about if we're to use your Instagram post, who are you comparing yourself to? Who are you looking up to for guidance? I've been in this world for a minute. I've been in the wellness space for a while. I've seen some shit. I see what goes on behind closed doors. I see what goes on. It's like the great and powerful Oz. I get a peek behind the curtain and it is a shit show. We've had influencers come to us with hundreds of thousands of followers in a six pack, and they have not menstruated in 2.5 years and cannot reproduce. So you never know when you're looking at pictures on the internet. You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And is that the ultimate goal for you? I don't know. That's something you're going to have to choose for yourself. But oftentimes when we're just hyper fixated on our aesthetics, we have to sacrifice our actual health to get that. And for a while, it's fine, and for a while, your body can pull up for you. And for a while, your body is so resilient and it just keeps going. It has the compensatory mechanisms to just keep going. And then there's the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's when people come to me. That's when people work with us and they're like, shit, I messed up. And we have to rebuild their health from the ground up.
Oh, this is such an important conversation. And it's a huge lesson for myself and I think all women. And something that I've been looking at a little bit more closely. The health practitioner that I'm currently working with, he's kind of gently guiding me, to be like, okay, Krista, you need to stop focusing so much on the external, right? But my story is, well, I've only been valued by the opposite sex for how I look, right? That was the only thing that I've ever, had value for in the past. And I think a lot of women are conditioned that way too, right? To look a certain way in order for the male gaze to appreciate them. And I think we do that to ourselves a lot of the time too. It's not necessarily all men wanting women to look a certain way. Yes, we've had some really fucked up paradigms in the past, but a lot of times too, I think women find that men prefer them without the makeup or just with being real and raw, and that's a whole unlearning process that we really really need to go through, right? It's tough. It can be really tough.
Well, it's just, ultimately what is lean, so if your practitioner is saying to you, you got to take the focus off of the external, I think we all have to understand what is how does that make me feel, right? So if somebody's like, my goal is this, I'm like, cool, how will you know when you've actually reached that goal? Like, what's your experience, what's your lived experience going to be like when you've reached that goal? And that's where I want to take them,
Yeah.
like from the before state to the after state. What's the actual desired after state? Is it a size 2 jeans, or is it how you feel in those size 2 jeans? Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Let's unpack that, right? Like, that's super duper important to help somebody get the transformation that they're after. And so if ultimately the value is like, I see seen, I feel seen, I feel respected, that male gaze is important to me, or, like, that's the value that I provide, are there other ways to help us access that feeling that creates for you in your body? For me, I'm like laughing because I remember in high school, I wanted to cut my hair super short. I just go through phases where I hack it all off, and it started in high school. Love short hair. And I had a teacher who was like, well, just so you know, like, boys don't like short hair. And I was like, hold my beer. I went to the salon, I got it hacked off, and I still caught some D. So don't you worry about me, teacher. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. It was like, I was like that. So that was never my thing. Like, oh, I got to look good for the men. I
Yeah.
was more like, I want to be the best. My value is from being the best. And so that translates through my physical body by being the skinniest. So we have to really tap into what is it, like, what's our value system, our inner value system. And it oftentimes originates like from family of origin or childhood or adolescence or something. We had an experience, that experience informed our belief about ourselves in the world. And so it's so, 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 so important when you're working with a practitioner. Like, this is why I create so much space for dialogue, because as the practitioner, as the provider, I want to get to know how you see the world. I want to know your construct of the world, because how can I get you from here to there, from where you are to where you want to be, if I don't know that, And that is just, I think that's another real fundamental difference between the conventional healthcare model and a functional approach. Like, a functional root cause approach really should make space for that conversation. I think listening is a very lost art form when it comes to like health in medicine.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Generally, it's you have 15 minutes to, tell me what's wrong. I'm going to give you a pill and then get out of my office.
Yeah, it's like, it's just enough time to like not feel seen, heard, or validated.
Totally. Yeah. And create a whole bunch of trauma around that as well. It's great.
Or reinforce trauma. If you have any
Yeah.
history of abandonment, if you have any history of my voice doesn't matter, my story doesn't matter, like, that's just going to reinforce those pathways, like, lickety split. And I always like try to pre-frame this conversation by saying, I am not opposed to conventional medicine. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful that we have it. If I break my arm, I don't want to go to my acupuncturist. I want to go to the ER. I want that support when I need it. Unfortunately, the system is a tragically broken system, and it's very ill-equipped for folks who are struggling with long-term chronic issues. It's kind of like healthy, 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 disease. And like, that's not how it works. Like, they're
No.
waiting for you to have labs that reflect a disease state before they take action on it in a lot of cases. And so with the functional approach, we're trying to catch it like long before it gets to that point. Because there's so many different strategies and interventions that you can do before you get to a point of like, oh shit, things are really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, thank goodness that this is becoming more of a common thing, because we need the support so badly. I was doing a little bit of research recently, and it was like 25% of all North Americans don't even have access to a primary health care physician right now, which in some senses it's like, okay, maybe that's really a blessing in disguise, because we aren't actually getting the support that we need for chronic illnesses. And it was interesting. I really loved how I was listening to an interview by Gabor Mate, and he was like, if I break a bone, I really, really want to go and see a bone doctor, for anything that's emergency based and that needs fixing right now. So, so grateful for those healers. But when you're looking at something like depression or chronic illnesses that we know have so many layers now, there's emotional causes, there's all of the, unworthiness, all of these different things that can build up over time. You're not going to want to see the bone doctor for that particular thing, right? And I think this is an opportunity with a lot of the healthcare crises that we're seeing right now is for people to see and try some of these other methods that are out there that are actually really helping people.
Yeah, something a quote from Gabor Mate that I've used for years and years because he's been sounding the alarm on this for a very, very, very long time, is the more specialized medicine becomes, because medicine's very, very, very specialized, right? The
Mhm.
more specialized medicine becomes, the more physicians see like individual body parts rather than being
Mhm.
able to step back and see the human behind those body parts. And really for healthcare, for whole healthcare, for becoming whole, we need to be able to understand all of the different aspects that make up a human. The emotional, I talk about the four bodies a lot. We have the physical body. It's really important. It is not the only body. We have
Mhm.
the physical body, we have the emotional body, we have the mental body, we have the energetic body, and all of these things need to be addressed for true health. This is the future of medicine. No, I just, if anybody's listening and they have any intention of getting into wellness, like this is where it's at. This is what you have to have the knowledge in the skill set to help people with, is to connect
Mhm.
all of the four bodies together and make them understand how important each and every body is.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, I just took a couple of notes about some things that you said prior that I wanted to address. You mentioned pro inflammatory foods, and I wanted to get your perspective on that because there's a lot of information going around the internet right now. There's always like a
Sure
new
is.
thing, right? It's like, a lot of things about seed oils and whatever. And yes, those probably aren't that great, but I'd just love to hear your perspective on like what are some pro inflammatory foods that we should actually be avoiding.
It's funny because I'm like, oh, we're back to seed oils. Like we're talking about this again. Like
Yeah.
6 years ago, this was like the money shot. And it's like,
Mhm.
and now it's back. Yeah, seed oils are inflammatory. Sorry. Sorry.
And they're like
It's
in
just
literally everything, like
literally everything.
everything. Yeah.
Right. And so because of part of the reason processed foods are so pro-inflammatory is because of the seed oils. It's also because of the refined carbohydrates, because of the refined sugar
Mhm.
altogether. I mean, it just makes your body was not accustomed to consuming these foods. So anything out of alignment with like what your body knows to be, fuel, it's probably going to cause a ruckus if you're doing it more often than not. Once in a blue moon, not a big deal, but if this is like part of your every single day diet, it's going to be a problem.
Mhm.
And that really depends too on how many other inflammatory inputs you have. It's very individualized. Some people can get away with a whole lot, other people don't have as much wiggle room. So blood sugar regulation or dysregulation is hugely inflammatory to the body. That is hypoglycemia, so episodes of low blood sugar, and hyperglycemia, episodes of high blood sugar, because they don't exist in a vacuum. You're usually having swings between the two.
Yep.
Wildly inflammatory for the body.
Mhm.
Other inflammatory things, stress. So if have a lot of chronic, unchecked, mismanaged stress, that really grinds down on a lot of the systems in the body, wildly inflammatory. So it kind of just depends on how much inflammation. If you're underslept, if you're somebody who just sleeps like 5 or 6 hours a night, wicked inflammatory. So how
Mhm.
much inflammation do you have in the body, and then how much can you get away with through food and inflammatory seed oils? Does that
Mhm.
make sense? It's pretty
Yep.
contextual.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on dairy?
Super duper individualized. For
Yeah.
some people, it's great, and for others, not so much. I tend to recommend, when I am recommending dairy, it's grass fed,
Mhm.
whole, like full fat dairy,
Yep.
not skim dairy, not, it's organic, grass fed, full fat for the full benefits, for the full spectrum of nutrients, fat soluble nutrients that come in with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Like I love dairy. I consume really, really high quality dairy. But, I have a lot of friends that are lactose intolerant. So obviously it's not great for them.
Well,
But
so
again,
lactose, that's a little bit of a misunderstanding because lactose is a milk sugar. And so
yeah.
some people can be sensitive to the sugars in milk, like
Mhm.
lactose, and that usually doesn't cause an immune dysregulation reaction. It's usually like, oh, my tummy, I got bubble guts, or I'm gonna like poop my
Yeah.
pants. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's usually a pretty immediate and significant GI reaction. Like you kind of know, like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that.
Hmm.
Whereas other people can be sensitive to the proteins within dairy, so casein or whey. And that is a little bit of like a sneaky situation because those reactions can take up to 4 days to present themselves. And those
Hmm.
reactions can be like anywhere from top to tail. It's not like, oh, I ate the cheese and I got the tummy ache. It's like I ate the cheese and then 3 days later, my eczema flared up. And it can be a little bit harder to make the association. So
Yeah.
in those scenarios, I'm kind of a fan for either doing an elimination style diet to suss it out,
Hmm.
especially if you have some type of chronic inflammatory condition, or a certain type of food sensitivity testing to just make sure that you are not inadvertently exposing your immune system to something that is causing inflammation and an immune reaction.
Yeah. And that's essentially how I figured out the gluten intolerance or
Mhm.
whatever it is that I have was quite severe. It was actually causing my severe clinical depression that I had for many, many years. But it took so long to figure it out because it was the same thing where you eat something, it wasn't an immediate reaction. It would happen days later. And that's where I'm kind of grateful for some of those crazy diets that I did in the past because it was during a keto period where, I was still dealing with a lot of inflammation and stuff because of the high cortisol and stress and all of those things. But once I introduced the gluten back, it was like a very, very noticeable difference where I was like, holy shit, okay, this is what is literally killing me right now. Um, but yeah, it's really, really hard to diagnose that stuff. And what, what, what would you like the allergy testing and things like I remember in the past it felt like it wasn't very accurate. Like are those a lot better now in terms
How
of
much time do you
accuracy? Yeah.
I did like a full hour like this is one of those like questions. This is why my job can be hard because people are like, just give me the skinny on boop a doop a doo. I'm like, how much time do you have? Because it's like a 2 hour answer. Food sensitivity testing is never the first place that I start with
Okay.
anybody. They're not, and there's multiple ways to test for food sensitivities. There's multiple technologies behind these labs. So I rarely, if ever, recommend somebody do like a mail home, like an at home test kit because they're usually not super duper reliable. And we always want to understand like what's going on behind the scenes. So if let's say you do a sensitivity test and there's like 25 different foods, that's usually more of an indication that you've got some immune dysregulation or some GI
Mm.
dysbiosis or dysfunction. And that's the thing that needs to be addressed. It's not pulling out all of the foods that you're supposedly sensitive to. That can actually exacerbate the immune dysregulation. So I'm not a huge fan. If I'm going to use them, I'm going to use them with like real precision for really specific situations. The one I would say caveat to that is gluten. Like this is the only test that I will sell. Like anybody can buy it off of my website. We don't do lab testing on our website at all. But because this one can be so profound for people, like removing gluten, getting that data can be really, really, really important. And that's like the one exception to my rule for food
Mm.
sensitivity testing. But for the most part, they're kind of a waste of money. They're not giving you like full data. We still want to understand the whys behind it. And it can showcase a lot of foods that you might not actually have to remove for life. And so people are kind of unnecessarily restricting their food after those tests. That tends to be what I see.
Okay, that makes sense. Something I saw on your channel that I thought was really cool is the link between perfectionism and hormone imbalance. Can we talk about that? Because I was like mind blown. Oh my God. Okay. This is definitely something I need to look into further.
Yeah, I'll joke that like I've never seen a perfectionist with perfect cortisol. Um it just doesn't happen. And this I say this with love because I am definitely a recovering perfectionist. It's not recovered yet, but I'm working on it. Because when we have this like perpetual drive to just
Mhm.
keep going and to have everything be perfect and to be the best, like I said, that's kind of my shtick. If I'm going to do anything, I got to be the best at it.
Mhm.
That's really high standards, right? And we can go into this over functioning. And again, not to harp on childhood, but so many of these subconscious beliefs get baked in at a very young age. So if there was any situation in your childhood where you receive love and comfort and care or in validation and belonging by performing and by being perfect and by doing the most, then that's going to anchor that belief into you, is like, in order to receive love, comfort, respect, camaraderie, fitting in, I have to continue to operate at this like high functioning level,
Mhm.
or otherwise people might leave me. And if I do the most, if I make myself absolutely indispensable, they can't leave me. They got to stick around, right? And so we might not even be aware of this, consciously aware of this, but these ideas, these beliefs are kind of running the show. And so we keep doubling down on ourselves. Like, I got to keep going harder and more and more. And the body is a beautiful, miraculous thing, but it has limited capacity for what it can do. And so if we're constantly pushing our body past its capacity, eventually it's going to wear down. But this like kind of like keyed up, this like hypervigilance, I got to keep going, got to keep going, got to keep going, that kind of keeps us in an active stress response. And so over time, we can see cortisol levels start to kind of peter out, and a lot of downstream side effects from there. So I think
Mhm.
perfectionism goes hand in hand with chronic stress. We are except the calls coming from inside the house, like we're the ones stressing ourselves out.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, this is almost like a collective wound that
Mhm.
so many of us in our society are dealing with right now. And for anybody listening to this, like, I think this is an important lesson to learn even in your 20s, right? Because this is where it started for me. I had a lot of resilience and things in my body when you're younger, and so you push and push and push. And I remember I moved overseas to work for a company that was very much in the at that time, it was when the startup culture and just grinding was the flavor of the month, right? It was like, that is success, right? If you're not an A player, like, get the fuck out. Like, you need to be grinding 24/7 or you're never going to make it here and you're going to lose your job and you have no value. And I totally adopted that mindset for several years. And I worked, from the moment that I woke up till like 1 in the morning. I not only had a job, but I had a startup. And it's always been like that with me. I always have like two or three endeavors going at once. I have a lot more balance now because I just couldn't do that to myself anymore. And, I still see people in younger generations with this hustle mentality. And yeah, you can feel like you're on top of the world and like you got this shit and you can just push yourself and that's the way to do it. And and I think there's a big difference too, with men and women. Like, men are built to have that drive a little bit more. Women, not so much. Our hormone systems are a little bit more delicate. And so you're really going to feel that shit later in life. And there's kind of like this competitive nature that we do have with the masculine at times. And I think this is just a really important lesson for people of all ages to understand that this shit will catch up with you eventually.
Yeah, it will. And when that is for you is there's no prediction. I will say, I will add, or I don't think that women's hormones are more delicate, but they are in fact more cyclical. And that we don't really have like a deep reverence or respect for that. If like hustle culture is go, 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 push, 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 that really is more attuned to like male physiology, which does run on a 24-hour cycle versus female physiology, which runs on a 28-day cycle, and kind of bakes in different phases in different rest periods into the cycle. We don't honor that. We don't acknowledge that. We plow through it because
Yeah.
we view it as a weakness or as a fault or as a flaw. And so we plow through it. And that's when shit catches up to you. It's like when we're not honoring our own cycles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so you do a lot of education around that as well?
Well, you can't talk about hormones without talking about cycles, baby.
Yeah, 100%. I want to dig into all of that, but we're like at the end of our time already. This has been such an amazing interview. Thank you so much. I love how, like, yeah, I can definitely tell that you've been in the industry for a really long time. Like, you know your shit for sure.
I know my shit, and it's not like, this is because I stay learning and I stay in the trenches. I stay working with people and I listen to women's lived experience. If you tell me something, I believe you, right? We are not a culture who believes women. And in fact, I remember that this was on Instagram and some med student, I was talking about my experience, some med student who knows more than anything than a student of anything, right? Like, full-blown expert. A med student said, I'm sorry that happened to you, but anecdotal evidence is not evidence. And I said, that's where we disagree. That is where we fundamentally disagree, because lived experience is absolutely evidence. So I listen to people, I listen to their experience. And so that's why I can talk about all of this stuff, because this is happening. This is real, you know? So experience is key. Thank you so much for having me on the show and listening to me rant.
No, it's fantastic. So folks that want to learn more or potentially work with you, how can they do these things?
I always like to send people to the podcast first and foremost, so you can get a little tasty taste of like how I do work, how I do operate. The Functional Nutrition Podcast, I've been podcasting for 5.5 years. So you've got like 300 or more hours of content to pick your way through. You'll like end up with like a PhD in nutrition at the end of it. So amazing. I love to send people there to learn a thing or two.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I definitely got schooled on a few things. And yeah, for anybody who was inspired, make sure you connect with Erin, and we'll catch you all in the next episode. Thanks so much for sharing your time and energy with us today. We'd love to hear your feedback on how our podcast has impacted your life, and are also open to suggestions for new and interesting topics. Please leave your comments with a quick review to help us grow this magical community of wellness warriors and light workers. Every month, we select one lucky reviewer to win our big magic box, containing all 3 of our beautiful magic lattes. To connect with us further, check us out on Instagram at wild_remedies. Thank you again, and see you at the next episode.